Hey everybody, we're just getting started here. Hope you guys are doing well. Looking forward to a Q&A. It's been a while since we've done one of these. What's up? Oh, Teehee, if I said that right. I'm doing great. Yeah, it's good to see you guys. Thank you for the love, Feeve78. It's good to check in with everybody. It's been some weeks since we did one of these live streams. So happy to be here. A lot has happened. Michael from the UK. I'm thinking you must be a Green Day fan, huh? Is that right? Matisse from the Netherlands. Hello. I lived in Holland 3 years in Den Haag. And I was just back there in 2019. Went back to my neighborhood in Scheveningen. It was awesome. I love the Netherlands. So got a couple minutes before the official start, and I wanted to just go over some high points. First off, thank everybody for the support. As you guys have seen, we've had pretty incredible growth since about, let's just say, mid-April. We had our first 1 million play episode with the Carroll Green analysis episode, and we hit 50,000 subscribers, which are both great milestones. And I'm here to say that we're just getting started, right? A lot of cool stuff in the hopper. The editorial calendar here is, it's living. So appreciate the good ideas I'm getting in the comments section that I'm getting from our patrons, which are kind of like our SEAL Team 6. If you feel like supporting the channel beyond just being a subscriber, not that just being a subscriber is, I don't want to make that sound like it's not a big deal, because it is. But if you want to be a patron, you can go up patreon.com/WardCarroll. Hello from Oregon, Bavaria, Alex in Bavaria. Fantastic. What time is it over there? It's got to be what? You're probably 5 or 6 hours ahead of us, so 10 or 11 p.m. Kevin, RAF Upper Hayford, stationed there in the late 80s. So Eric says, I heard the maintenance costs are a big reason the F-14 was retired. Yes, as I said in the F-14 walk-around episode, that was a big reason that the airplane was retired. The maintenance man hours, the cost per flight hour was, got to be a little too much. Not quite unsustainable overall maintenance. Hey, dude. Hello, Sean. Oh, it's 11 p.m. over in Bavaria. Okay, thanks for the effort, Alex. Jude's here. He's one of our patrons. Hello, Alan. Doug Sherman's here. He's another one of our patrons. Good to see you, Doug. The patrons have choice, and we just chat. We talk about all kinds of things. Stuff about the F-14, stuff about the state of naval aviation, carrier warfare, stuff about writing products. They get the inside scoop on how we're looking on republishing Punk Wing and Punk's Fight. Ask, what was my favorite flight ever? Wow, that's a great question. So off the top of my head, the best flights, not just a single flight, but the best flights in general were the shore-based air combat maneuvering flights that we would do during our dissimilar air combat training part of turnaround, where we dedicate ourselves to getting better at doing long steps, where we had 2 aggressor squadrons. One was a reserve squadron, VFC-12, and the other was a dedicated aggressor squadron, VF-40, as I've talked about, I talked about 43 in the most recent episode, the constant peg episode. So these flights were great because you were shore-based, so you didn't have to save fuel for coming back aboard the carrier. You could kind of burn down to fumes, as we say, and just do an idle descent back into NAS Oceania. But the best ones among those were what we would call the many v many. So it'd be like 8VX, where you'd have 2 divisions of Tomcats against an unknown number of bandits. Sometimes it numbered in double digits. And so those were just a blast, really challenging, because during the intercept, you'd have to sort, right? So like I said, 50-mile setup. So you're kind of in Phoenix Ridge to start with, and so the Rio have to, in accordance with our briefed contracts, target, we either separate by or sort by side or sort by range. And you try going after what airplane with the Phoenix, and then sort of figure out based on the kills that were called by the folks in the tax trailer. And they would say, okay, that guy's dead, the trail division. So you'd figure out, okay, now what do we have to mop up? So then you'd get into the Sparrow arena, which was the medium range arena. Maybe they used some sort of a wagon wheel where they sort of used blur to make sure the Sparrow didn't die. And you'd have to figure it out. It was really intense. And then after you sorted through the medium range, you'd start into the visual where the pilots would start to get tallies. And now the comms go from the Rio to the Rio, as I explained in the Rio Responsibilities episode. Rio start doing the co-pilot duties. Okay, pilots got this guy looking out here, right? And you're talking to each other, and pilots are talking among each other. I'm going high left. You take the low. Fox 2, good kill. Okay, coming back around. Who do you got? Where are you? It's one chaotic and very well coordinated. And so these engagements last minutes. Finally, you'd have everybody killed, or you'd figure out, okay, this is a good time to bug out and live to fight another day. And so you'd bug, and then again, knock it off. Everybody verify the knock it off, and you'd set up another one. You'd do maybe 2 of those, maybe, and then you'd be, okay, we're out of gas. Or usually the bogeys or the bandits would run out of gas first. And they'd have to return to base, and you'd land and be just super jazzed up because this is as good as it gets in terms of the dogfights, that Battle of Britain scenario. And you go debrief in the tax trailer, talk about what you did, what you didn't do. The aggressors would critique, what you should have done or what you did right. Lessons learned, very detailed debriefs. And then if it's Monday, you'd go to the club, or Wednesday or Friday, you'd go to the club and finish. I can't believe I get paid to do this. So that's a long answer to the question. So those kinds of missions were there were some low levels that we did, particularly there was one in Oman called Star Wars Canyon. It's a lot like the Star Wars Canyon in the movie. So you dive into this canyon, and the canyon walls would be above you, and you just follow the canyon. Just amazing, cool, huge rush kind of a flight. And you do what we call bilateral exercises against, like the Omanis, and their pilots were British mercenary pilots, or NATO nations like the Spanish with their Harriers, French Mirages, Super Entente, and then some real world ops were pretty intense. Flying over Bosnia at the height of that tension in '95, doing TARPS missions, the reconnaissance missions, trying to find the grave sites in Perigador and some other things, and potentially getting shot at. That was pretty, high intensity flying. Operation Southern Watch, a lot of times it was hours of just drilling holes in the sky, waiting for them to launch a MiG-25 or a MiG-29, getting lit up by the SAM sites, and getting very close to the ROE where you could have the A6s or the Hornets come in and fire an anti-radiation missile at a site that had lit us. So that was pretty sporty. And then, just like I've mentioned in several episodes, just trying to get aboard on a bad weather night had its own level of excitement. Yeah, Star Wars Canyon. is what we called it. And it was because it looked a lot like the Star Wars Canyon in the movie. So Kevin, next VF51 Orty checking in. Love me some Orties. You know, the BB stackers, those guys kept us armed up and lethal. You know, that's a hard gig. Thank you, Kevin, for what you did. So, and again, I want to try to address questions on this one. So they scroll, as you guys can see, 35 program in general. Okay, so great question. So the F-35, as you guys may know, is the Marine Corps variant of the Fighting II Joint Strike Fighter. It is a V-stall airplane, has a cool vertical landing mode, takeoff and landing mode that is required because they operate off of amphibs, right? The Marines do brown water, Navy get Marines ashore. These days they're using, you know, the big H-53s, the three-motor H-53s, the Super Stallions, V-22s, which get them ashore twice as fast, twice as far. As I've mentioned, I worked on that program. Very proud of what we were able to do to get that program back where it needed to be and get it fielded. Had the opportunity to fly the V-22 in Afghanistan when I was there in 2010 as an embedded journalist. Went down to Helmand province and flew all around, and it's amazing to watch the airplane being flown like we said it would be. And then the four-bladed Huey now, and also what used to be the Harrier. Now you have the F-35B. So this is a great airplane. I'm going to do an episode talking about the technology, the next generation technology. 35 minutes now. Already have replaced all the Harriers. I'm not sure what the status is of that. You know, speaking of the Harrier, I went to high school at Cherry Point. My dad was an attack pilot flying A-6 Intruders at that time out of Marine Corps Air Station Cherry Point, and the Harrier was brand new. So the 1975, we were flying Aviate-As, and those airplanes were pretty sporty. And the B made it a better airplane in terms of thrust control and other things that fixed kind of some of the dangerous parts of the A. In fact, we killed 9 Marine Corps pilots in 1975 in the Aviate-A. That was a real widowmaker. So here comes B. B is aged out, so here comes the F-35B. So long story short, that's a great airplane. And it brings a lot to the fight with respect to not just supporting the Marines going ashore, but also the ARG and the MU and the battle group, the strike group. Because each F-35 is its own like intel node, you know, so it's able to provide data strategically in a way that no other Super Hornet Tomcat certainly couldn't do that back in the day. So it's a great airplane. And if you talk to anybody, I mean, the program has its critics because it's taken a long time to field it, and that's a lesson in defense procurement. $1.2 trillion program with a T. It's a new number in DoD acquisition programs. And it's taken literally a couple of decades to field it. You know, all the variants, the A, which is now out of date, the B and the C, which is just now reaching what we call initial interoperability or initial operational capability, IOC. So that's sort of the not so good category. And if you read the press, you know, particularly the trade press around the Pentagon, you have the critics of this program, you know, but all I do is open my ears to those who are actually flying the airplane. And you'll never talk to an F-35 aviator that says, yeah, I wish they're happy with it. I think it's a cool airplane, and it's going to change the nature. Interoperability, we do interoperability between the amphibious rated group and the carrier strike group in a way that we haven't even scratched the surface of what's going to happen with that capability. So Stephen asks, what's my take on the F-15C? F-15C is a kick-ass airplane. So we used to fight the folks out of Langley, primarily when we were shore-based and doing 1v1 and many v many against the Air Force guys. A well-flown Eagle is a great airplane. It's a 1-to-1 thrust to weight, so they can go vertical all day. And then if you put them at cornering speed, they're also they can, as we say, they got small radius, and they can keep that all day because of the power that this airplane has. So but we've also beat Eagles. And if you go up YouTube, there's a lot of Tomcat HUD footage with the pipper on the canopy of an Eagle. So it's a great airplane. So my big question is, when do we get to see you slap some people in DCS? So I'm in comms with folks in the DCS community. I appreciate how people have welcomed me to this magnificent and vibrant community. I've done a couple of Zoom calls. I'll give a shout out to VVF 161. Mongo has sort of walked me through the hardware software piece. So it's just a matter of me focusing on, acquiring hardware, getting smart on fly the airplane, both front seat and back seat. As you guys know who do DCS, we've got to you got to learn how to start the airplane up and everything else. I hope our connection is looking good. I'm getting some data. How we look? You guys seeing me all right? Give me a thumbs up or something in chat. Let me go check something out. Hold on, be right back. Apologize for the connectivity here. Get it squared away. Pee break. Yeah. No, I'm just trying to went downstairs and told the other members of this household to get off the Wi-Fi. Yeah. Roger that. So we should be good to go here in a second. Hold on. So Solid Boat 123 asked, did I ever go against the Royal Navy Sea Harriers? Yes. Last deployment, I think it was Invincible, was operating in the Persian Gulf with us, and had a great time with those guys. Have armed Divo. I was QA, and I was maintenance officer in VF 102 when I was department head. I was never AVARM. Okay, I'm going to try to, let me know if this is working better. I'm going to do it from down here because the connectivity is no good. All right, guys, how am I looking now? Better? Okay, great. Okay, great. We lost already 8. Okay. So some of the, and again, patrons find out this kind of news first. But some of the stuff that is going on, some cool episodes coming up. The next one is actually going to be about the inside scoop on the Blue Angels. As we get into air show season, the Blue Angels, you'll probably see an air show near you. And the Blue Angels just flew here in Annapolis, Maryland, where I am, for commissioning week. We just sent 1,020 new second lieutenants and ensigns to the fleet. And during the course of that week, which was last week, the Blue Angels flew twice and was able to take in the new Super Hornet show. So I'm going to do an episode about what's different with the Super Hornet from the old Legacy Hornet. What did it take to transition? What is it like to fly with them? And as exciting or as as amazing as the sortie itself, the demo itself was, the brief and the debrief, which is a lesson in organizational culture. So good stuff all the way around there. So Brandon Cotton says, did some demos with them when I was on the demo team with 122. Great. So Super Hornet driver. VFA 122 is the West Coast RAG. In fact, new CO, the PCO, checked in with me a couple of weeks ago. So good stuff there at Lemoore out in California, the heartland of California. So Desert Punk says, I'm a big Nirvana fan. I was back when Nevermind came out, right? Like we all were. It kind of was an amazing album. I don't know if I'd say I'm a huge fan. I think their entire body of work is mixed. But yeah, I mean, I respect them. J. Cole has thoughts on the F-15EX. I think it's an amazing program. I think it's smart to use let me say hi to my man Genghis. So David Kahn and I were in VF 102, and he was the skeds writer at VF 43 back in the day. And he says, any thoughts on doing the flight deck jobs episode? I think that's a great idea, right? So we want to give props to the folks that get the airplanes airborne. And, that's all those squadron guys who work on the flight deck, ship's company, air department. They do the heavy lifting to get us airborne. And if you've ever been aboard an aircraft carrier, when you're doing a 25 plane launch followed by a 25 plane recovery, and you do that 9 cycles a day, then you get it, right? Just think of the choreography it takes. That's just the amazing thing. So Lager says, hey, Ward, you're live. Okay, good. I thought I was live. Just here to tell you that your videos are awesome. Keep them coming. Okay, thank you. How did I get my call sign, Alex asks. Well, so you guys know my call sign is Mooch, right? And so I got it by borrowing stuff on my first deployment. So this is back in old days, WW Cold War, no such thing as the internet, 1984. I'm aboard the USS Independence. So there's no, I didn't show up with stamps or envelopes or other things. And so I was borrowing stuff. Hey, can I borrow a stamp? Can I borrow an envelope? And finally, this guy named Fuji Lansdale said, you're a mooch. And that's all it takes. It's stuck. Barbara asked, did you ever fight Italian F-104s? Yes. Out of Gioia de Colle. Fought them. That's a cool airplane. Doesn't turn very well, but it's fast. It has a hard light burner. And then I had to divert into Gioia for a couple of days, and we were hosted there by the Italians and the Brits, and it was, good times. That was really, really friendly folks on the east coast of Italy there on the Adriatic. So Stratford says, why do we see more single-seat fighters these days? Surely 2 heads are better than 1. This conversation just came up last night. I was talking to one of the guys that's in my band, my rock band, who is a retired test pilot. He was a Tomcat guy and then a Hornet, Super Hornet guy. And he was talking about how the Tomcat guys who transitioned to the Super Hornet community preferred to be in the F than the E, because the E pilots are so busy that they were like borderline not comfortable, right? And of course, I'm a Rio, so I'm going to say that kind of thing. But this is the truth, is that the Whizzo in the FA-18F is doing a lot of stuff that makes that a more effective airplane. So the way he put it is the the F-18Es were used as tankers. They got the tanker mission, while the F-18Fs were doing the strike mission. So, I think, and you'll see this in the F-35 too, right? I mean, you imagine the sort of sensory overload potentially when your HUD is in your visor. So everywhere you look, there's symbology. Even when you look behind you or when you look down, right? You're like Space Ghost flying this invisible airplane. And so, in a busy environment, multi-bogey strike, fighter mission into a strike mission, I'm thinking you would probably like to have another guy doing the task sharing. So, but I doubt we're going to see many more two-seat airplanes going forward. Whatever happens in the future, and the whole manned, unmanned conversation is a completely different topic, but I doubt you're going to see any more two-place strike fighters going forward. VFA-2 did their share of tanking missions just like 137 did in 06 and 08. Brandon, thanks for that. Do call signs have to be approved by the command? No, absolutely not. Now, during the fallout from the Hook 91 situation, there was some scrutiny placed on call signs, but that was very sort of specific. I think now, if there's something that's completely out of bounds, like that's sexist or racist or just rude, I'm sure the CEO would go, okay, maybe that's not it. Is there a variation on that thing that we might be able to do? Right. So my definitive statement on call signs is the beginning of chapter 2 of Punk's War. So those you guys who've read it have seen me sort of explaining how call signs are derived and what is the hierarchy of call signs. And, in there I described that the best ones are the ones that are received for a dubious act. There's the ones that are automatic, Soup Campbell, Taco Bell, every Smith is going to be Smitty, every McDonald is going to be Mac, unless you do something, like I had a pilot whose last name was McDonald, but his call sign was Chili. And that was because he had a problem with some chili on Liberty, And I guess you guys can guess what I mean there. So Charlie Hart, Master Blaster. Yeah, love the Master Blasters. What else we got here? Yes, Lance says I should have an aviation deck guy as a guest. I really should. And I'm hoping we can come out of it when we come out of the COVID environment completely, that I'll be able to do more face-to-face interviews, because Zoom interviews, I'm not loving that. You guys saw I had Reb on the phone for that amazing episode where he described when the radome came unhinged and smashed into his canopy. And I think that was fun. Obviously Reb tells the story better than anybody else. So that was great. A guest is a tricky thing, because they have to be able to be conversational, and you guys want to watch the channel. And if a guy's hemming and hawing or whatever, then, that's no good. But certainly we want to do that. What's it like walking around being a top tier U.S. fighter pilot of a Tomcat? So I was a Rio, right? But it was great. You didn't walk in anybody's shadow. The pride you had in the squadron was like pride in, and Doug, for instance, is a first responder, pride in the folks you share a space with at the station house and that fight fires with, or pride in being EMT, or pride in being a law enforcement. All of that sort of stuff is analogous to the pride that we feel in any one of the squadrons I was in, they weren't equal in terms of morale. It's sort of a leadership challenge about the CO at the time or whatever. And this is in Punk's War. Soup Campbell is based on sort of a combination of different COs that I had in the early years. So you guys who've read Punk's War can understand what I'm talking about there. But, I look at the patches that I had and the different things that I was able to do. And, it's a great life. It's hard to replicate. I've had some cool jobs out of the Navy, particularly, as I said, I worked on the V-22 program. That was a great team that got that airplane fielded, a real lesson in acquisition. And then I was able to be at some cool .coms like military.com and wearethemighty.com out of Hollywood. And those were great teams with talented people, but it's hard to replicate when you have a mission of such consequence, and you're doing things like flying 12 or 14 Tomcats off of a nuclear-powered aircraft carrier in hostile waters. That's kind of hard to replicate. And so I don't miss being gone for upwards of 8 months on deployment, not to mention the workups to get ready for deployment. But I do miss the camaraderie and the sense of purpose that the squadron had, both officer and enlisted. I miss, as the Master Blaster talking about the leadership and what I learned from the senior enlisted in the squadron. Those guys knew the airplane better than we did. Those guys taught us how to be officers and men. Those guys taught us how to pull liberty. They taught us what a career in the Navy was all about. And I miss that mentorship. I owe those folks a lot. So yeah, that was fun. Those were good days. And obviously this channel is about, a wide, well, maybe not that wide, but a range of things. But, mostly it's talking about life in a squadron. And in my case, a carrier-based squadron. And that's no second place there, right? That's as good as it gets. Thoughts on the Eurofighter? Well, I've seen the demo. I've never fought against the Eurofighter. I saw the demo at Farnborough, and it's amazing. That's an amazing airplane. I think that's a great capability. VF-1 was the first Tomcat squadron. Yes. And that was I want to say 73, 74 timeframe. So Fox 2 Production says, any more stories about going to Nellis? Love the Constant Peg episode. So I never did Red Flag. I would det out of Nellis. So I think Constant Peg is kind of all I have to say about Nellis particularly. The reaction to that episode has been fantastic. It's been a rocket ship. It's rivaling the Hultgreen episode in terms of the trajectory of the metrics, and that's great. And so the way this works, and this is sort of behind the scenes of YouTube, and I'm now smart on this in a way maybe I wasn't 2 months ago. But when I hit publish, it's like I'm in mission control watching the rocket either leave the launch pad and go into orbit, or not quite fall back to Earth, but barely make it into, outer space. And so when you will know really success or failure, at least in the short term, in about an hour, and YouTube, the back end of YouTube is amazing in terms of the granularity of the data. So, the Constant Peg episode is done very well, and it did well right out of the gate. And so I'm just, I'm like the hitter just having at bats, trying to hit triples and home runs. Occasionally you'll hit a single. I thought the UFO episode would be more popular than it has been. But the coin of the realm is subscribers watching it right out of the gate. Right. So that's why subscribers are so important to the success of this channel. And I appreciate, our core guys. So our SEAL Team 6 is our patrons. And then the next, like the 4th Infantry Division is, to use an Army analogy, is our subscribers. And then it's just the people on YouTube who get the episodes teed up. And you guys are familiar with the YouTube UX, right? It's up next or your homepage or recommended kind of things. And so if you don't connect right away, it's not people, it's an algorithm, right? This is designed by engineers and it's code and whatnot. So it'll just kind of lay there and subscribers will get to it eventually. So it sort of has this linear trajectory. And a good example of that is kind of the Sunset on the Tomcat episode, which I'm proud of. And again, I thank my friend Spencer Garrett for narrating that. If you guys aren't familiar with Spencer, he's kind of a bit actor, a character actor that you've seen. And he was most recently in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. If you saw that movie with Brad Pitt and Leonardo DiCaprio, it's a Quentin Tarantino movie, which is about the Manson family. And Quentin Tarantino has this unique ability to sort of make history right, in these very specific ways. So I won't spoil it if you haven't seen the movie. I highly recommend it. But Spencer's in the very beginning of that. He plays a talk show host who's interviewing the two of them. And so he's a cool guy. And I met him when I was in LA working out there at the MTV Movie Awards in 2015. And he's got a cool voice, as you guys have watched that episode have seen. And so anyway, I'm proud of that episode. But numbers wise, and again, I'm kind of, now my standards are higher, like obnoxiously higher, because of the success of some of the episodes. But if you'd told me 2 months ago we're going to have an episode that's nibbling at 30,000, views, I would have been like, well, holy smokes, how did that happen? So the channel's growing. Thank you for your support. We got a lot of good stuff in the hopper. I really do appreciate the episode ideas in comments, and this is what we talk about at our patron Zoom calls, in very great detail. Like I said, what I've got in the hopper is my experience flying with the Blue Angels in the slot, and also talking about all the Blue Angels shows that I've seen through history, starting with the F-11. That's the first Blue Angels show I ever saw. My dad was, as I've mentioned, an A4. He was flying A4s as a Marine Corps attack pilot at El Toro. Don't look for it. It's not there anymore in Orange County. And I saw the F-11 show, and then obviously later F4s, A4s, Hornets, now Super Hornets. And so there's a lot to say, including the transition from F4s to A4s. It was sort of chaotic, and maybe people don't know that story. They went from being sort of a flying club to being a real squadron. And the reason why is an interesting backstory. So we'll talk about some of those things. And as you guys know, I don't just tell the surface of the story. I like to go deeper, and I think that's what makes this channel entertaining. So El Toro had the best air shows. Yeah, I remember them distinctly. Hard light burners of the F-8. The Crusader was a cool airplane. And the C-130 had JATO, right? So it would do that jet-assisted takeoff, and the noise that generated was really kind of fun, so it was great. So Dabo 45 says, what was the pilot-Rio relationship? Anything like Top Gun as in buddies? So, I think Top Gun got it right in terms of kind of the chemistry and the unity. So we like to fly the same pilots and Rios together. It was called the TAC Ord. So you'd be TAC Orded with a specific pilot. And as a senior Rio, generally you'd fly with junior pilots. And so, I flew with some, and when I was a junior Rio, I'm flying with department heads or even, Squadron XO. When I was actually a department head, I flew with the XO, and this is when we were doing the Bosnian situation, the Great Bosnian War of 1995-96. And I flew with the XO, a guy named Kraut Dale, who'd been a Top Gun instructor, great guy. And we had some great chemistry because we're both pretty senior. I was lieutenant commander, he was commander. That was fun, and both very experienced. But sometimes you'd have a pilot that was having trouble either getting aboard or the other elements of carrier-based flying that needed senior sort of mentorship, and so you'd get crewed with those folks. And I took pride in being a Mr. Fix-It, kind of shoulder massage kind of Rio that could help with that kind of thing. And I had the ability to do it because by the time I was a department head, I'd been a flight instructor in flight school and a RAG instructor at VF 101. So a lot of experience in the instructor, co-pilot, new guy role. And, as a Rio, as I've said in the Rio Responsibilities episode, it was a lot about co-pilot and knowing the airplane as well as the guy in the front seat. And I took great pride in that. So the thing that Top Gun got wrong was there was this element of, Mavericks, the hero, and Goose is sort of the Ed McMahon to Johnny Carson kind of thing, to use a pop culture analogy. So that's not quite the way it is. And if you talk to Baranek, or any of the Rio personalities who are around the space or have written books, you know that we're very type A. Obviously, there's some things that the pilot has to do, right? My controls in the backseat did not control the airplane, so I can't land the airplane. But I can certainly assist with a timely airspeed call, or, make sure we're hitting our numbers in the pattern, or figuring out the racetrack during case 3 and Marshall, make sure we're joining on the right tanker, all of that sort of stuff, right? So As I say in the Tomcat Glows on, or Sunset Glows on the Tomcat episode, I have great reverence and love, seriously love, for the pilots who drove me around for all those years, you know. And I'm not saying that, you know, my skill set is co-equal to what they did when they were in the airplane, but there was no second citizen or you know, uh, tier 2 status for Rios in the squadron. If you talk to any Tomcat pilots, they don't even speak that language. Now, F4 guys talk a little bit about the gib, the guy in back, and just take notes and answer the phone kind of stuff. That went away in the F-14 because the F-14 didn't have a whole lot of redundancy. It's the first airplane with tandem seating that was built with very little redundancy, and so and it got better. So a Whizzo, if you look at a Super Hornet and an F-18F, all MFDs, each guy's doing a different thing. It's completely autonomous, and you need 2 talented people to fight that airplane right. And so we're not sending, flight school washouts, pilot washouts to NFO training like they used to in the old days. These were all fallen angels that if you don't want to stay in the airplane, you get to go be an NFO. That's not how it goes anymore. Folks who choose NFO do so because they're very interested in that mission set. And as a result, if you go to VT86 or any of the accession, training tracks, you'll see super talented folks who are going to be Whizzos and the other ECMOs the electronics, EWOs and the other stuff that we have in every one of the airplanes, SECOs and the E2Ds, so forth. So Sean says, my father was an Air Force pilot, used to joke about the flying officers, not saluting non-flight officers, but this was back in the 60s. Yeah, so I get it, Sean. My dad actually harbored some of those attitudes, being a single seat guy, A4 guy, that was thrust into the A6. I talked to some of the BNs who flew with him, and like, yeah, I'll be honest, he wasn't always so great to fly with because he didn't really know what to do with the BN. So I get it. But if you talk to a career 2-seat aviator, they fully appreciate and they get it. And I talked to Tomcat pilots who went to do exchange tours on Eagle squadrons, and they're like, I miss having a Rio in the airplane, So what's the difference between an F-14 Rio and an F-18F Whizzo? Jim Bob asks. Well, a different airplane, but I think in the most sort of 30,000 foot terms, nothing. It's the same role, same mission sets. The F-18F is a lot more capable airplane in terms of the digital suite and the weapons that it carries and what it can do. It's not as fast. Now, let's be honest. An F-14B or D was a spank machine in terms of high-end speed. As I've said on the channel before, we've given up speed for things like loiterability and stealth and, forward quarter lethality. Okay, but we have the metric of speed, which used to be everything in the 70s and 80s, is we've kind of punted on that. So, but the basic answer to what's the difference between a Rio and a Whizzo is nothing. Just a different airplane, same basic responsibilities. I think if you did the Rio responsibility episode and called it Whizzo responsibilities, I think a Whizzo would say, yeah, Mooch got it right. So the Legion 666, is high speed realistically reachable in a mission? Yeah, like I described in the Dogfight 101, bugging out is a thing. Like Viper says in Top Gun, go away and live to fight another day. Well, that's a function of speed, right? And if you can't go Mach 1.5, 1.8, you're not going to survive. You're going to get shot as you're trying to run away. And this is the thing about that I said in the Constant Peg episode about the MiG-23. You didn't want to try to run away from a MiG-23 because he's going to run you down. You just solved his problem, right? Rear quarter shot with the ATOL because he doesn't have forward quarter capability, and plus his radar probably doesn't work. So that's your advantage. And if you're going to give him this advantage, then he's going to take it, right? So speed can matter, even in a 5th or 6th generation modern 21st century environment, right? I think in some ways we've lost that reality, that, sort of essay. So Yuri Barrick says, did you work with EA6s and how did that happen? Yes. So in some scenarios, you could not go feet dry without an EA6, because they were going to shut down the SAMs. They were, the electric. So for instance, in Bosnia or in southern Iraq doing Operation Southern Watch, the electric had to be there and ready to go to shut down a SAM threat before Tomcats and Hornets could go feet dry. So yes, I've worked very closely with prowlers in my case, and it's the same now with growlers in the case of modern airplanes. So very much appreciate. So I have one hop in a prowler. And so this was in the Gulf. So we were actually at the time doing 3 carrier operations. We had George Washington, Nimitz, and the Independence, which was the forward-based 7th Fleet carrier at the time. So Nimitz is going to go home. In order to do our contingency operations that we'd planned, which later became Desert Fox, we needed 5 prowlers. We only had 4. So we had to go over to Nimitz and get one of their prowlers. So we took me, one of the Hornet skippers, a real Hornet or Prowler ECMO, and a Prowler pilot, because the Hornet skipper and I had to do meetings with the Nimitz staff. So like, okay, we'll just save you. We'll make it easy. So we took a Hilo over there, an H-60 over there. And now we're going to fly this Prowler back. So I was in the back seat with this Hornet skipper who'd never flown a Prowler, never mind, had flown in the back seat of an airplane, and then a Prowler pilot and a real Prowler ECMO. So we launch, catch shot off of Nimitz, fly around a little bit, and we land back on George Washington. All right, so that's my only arrested, or my only catch shot on Nimitz. So 1 catch shot, no traps on Nimitz, and then an additional trap on George Washington in a Prowler. That's my only Prowler hop, and you should have seen the look on the Hornet pilot's face, because you can't see out the front in the back of a Prowler, so he couldn't see out and he didn't have control of the airplane. So he was kind of freaked out. I'm like, hey, Dirt, welcome to my world. How you liking it? So that was kind of fun. But that airplane, the Prowler, was super capable. And that's why they kept him in the fleet until the Growler was ready, because you could not do, and the Air Force punted on jamming capability, right? They after they got rid of the EF-111, they didn't have any organic jamming capability. So they were using the Prowlers too. So the Prowler was an amazing airplane, and now the Growler, which has, it's a different airplane. It's not just a Super Hornet with jamming pods on it. It's a different airplane. It has to have a beefier wing and center barrel and other things than the regular Super Hornet. So that's a cool airplane, a very capable airplane. Have I ever flown a Cagbird? Yeah, I mean that's the 200, the 00 series. Yeah, so I flew Tomcat 100, Gypsy, 200 or Diamond 100. That was always the Cagbird. So yeah, I've flown the Cagbird. So Andrew asked, what's the scariest situation I was ever in? So I've talked about it, right? In the Real Responsibilities episode, that was flying in the North Atlantic, off the Shetland Islands, the Iceland-UK gap in very rough seas. That's absolutely the scariest flying. And I was not in harm's way except with the elements. And Grinch Brophy was my pilot in this particular sortie, where we had just done this cool strike mission over Scotland, flying over the locks. And, it's like the scenery of Braveheart. We're flying, doing these ridge runs, and very cool. Now it's time to go land on the boat. And the weather is terrible. And so all the joy we had of flying over the Scotland kind of went away. And so that's the answer. Trying to land on the USS Eisenhower in very rough seas was absolutely the hairiest flying I've ever done. Can you drink beer during deployment? Not on the boat, but certainly you can when you go pull into port. And we absolutely did. Yeah, I was pretty white when the canopy came off the flight. Absolutely. That was, and so if you guys haven't seen that, my canopy just flew off episode, I tell you all the dirty details in there. So when did you start your aviation career? Hagrid asked. Hagrid, 1955, AOCS. No, I went to the Naval Academy. And so I, went to high school, and we lived on base at Marine Corps Air Station Cherry Point. I went to Havelock High School, surrounded by Marine Corps aviators. So naturally I was influenced. And some of my dad was the CEO of VMA 121, the Green Knights, flying EA6s or A6Es rather. I apologize. And I just decided, as we make these decisions, I didn't have a whole lot of data. And what do you know when you're 17, 18 years old? And I was just like, I think that would probably be the best choice. It was either that or the University of Michigan. Sounds like risky business, and so, the Michigan option didn't really seem like a blazing path for me. It would have been fun. Ann Arbor's a cool town. I had state residency there because my dad was born and raised in Traverse City, Michigan. So hello, Michigan, if anybody here is from Michigan. Boo, Michigan, Rick says. Okay, I get it. But it's a moot point because I didn't go there. So I wound up getting involved in this prep school program because coming out of high school, my SAT scores were not good enough to get into the Naval Academy. All right. So I wound up getting out of high school and going to prep school down in Harlingen, Texas, the Marine Military Academy for a year. And so spent a year down there, got my, I was nominated and then appointed. And so wound up going summer 78, show up in Annapolis, 4 years as a midshipman, loved it. It was hard in some ways. Academics particularly were hard, but loved being a mid, had a great time. Lifelong friends remain. I'm lucky I live in Annapolis, and I actually work on the Naval Academy grounds with another thing that I do. And, deal with mids. I was dealing with mids today. We run an internship program, and I get to deal with midshipmen. These guys, unfortunately, think they want to go submarines. I'm trying to fix that. But big fan of the Naval Academy. So that is my accession source. Long answer. Selected NFO, went to flight school, VT10, VT86. Out of VT10, I had, good grades, so I was able to select what I wanted. Picked the Rio pipeline, went through that, got my wings, and then wound up on the East Coast at VF 101. So not AOCS, but Naval Academy was my accession source. So Sergeant Doc's .exe, we spoke about the F-35. So when I post this, go back. We talked specifically about the F-35B, but it's a procurement nightmare. But you're going to get a capability, and for that effort, you'll get a next generation capability. And this is what I used to say about the V-22 as well. Procurement, acquisition, developmental test is hard. And so this is why the Ford class carrier is taking so long and it has such issues. Now, there's some choices that we make in the outset that maybe we could mitigate the risk a little bit. Do we have to do like 6 next-gen systems all on a single platform like Ford class? I think the answer is maybe that was ambitious, just like with the F-35. Not just a glass cockpit, but your visor is your HUD. Stealth, carrier-based stealth, all kinds of lines, like millions of lines of code, all of this stuff it takes. And then it turns out the first time you're trying to land on the carrier, the tail hook doesn't work, right? Just something as basic as that. So, but ultimately you're going to get an amazing capability that is without peer. As we talk about the return of peer conflict, China, Russia, other bad actors, nobody can hang with the F-35. It's just a matter of, can we generate enough sorties, and do we have the defense in depth in the event we start losing them? How's that going to look, right? So people are wargaming those contingencies. But as I said early on our live stream, if you talk to a F-35 pilot, they are not going to say, I want to go back to the airplane I was flying before, right? So, but we'll see. So how much did pilot naval aviator training did a Rio have to short of actually flying the plane? Well, we don't get any, or when I went through flight school, we didn't get any like stick time. Now in VT10, they actually get to solo, which I think is a cool initiative, right? So it gives you an appreciation for that. Now, I came into my ability to fly the airplane during my shore tours, right? So as I've described in the Rio Responsibilities episode, I was lucky enough, and Genghis Khan, who was on the thread earlier, was the SCEDS officer. He was the duty Rio at VF-43, which is the aggressor squadron, or was back in those days, and he was writing the flight schedule. So he would hook me up with backseat flights with A4s, F5s, F16s, and so I got a lot of stick time. And guys that once they got comfortable with you, you were able to fly the airplane a lot. So I got good at flying parade, join up in rendezvous, got good at dogfighting the airplane, as I described that F-16 hop with Monty Hall, and how I was kicking my own ass by flying on the arc, 9 Gs at 450 knots. So, but the short answer to the question is no. Rios back in my time did not get any stick time, but as you got experience, good Rios would fly the front seat simulator to get familiar with the cockpit switchology. And as a function of that, you'd get better and better as a pilot. But that's not an official, flight school syllabus. So Brian asked Brian Topless Bar, is that your real last name? In your video on Gulf of Sidra, you mentioned you follow up Fox 1 killing original launch. Was it just a particular missile setup they were running? Can you explain why? So without getting into the classified elements of the Sparrow missile, so as you launch a Sparrow, the AUG-9 would jump on a channel, and it would do this routine where it would sort of jump between channels. So what Leo did is when he ripple fired the Sparrows, the first one went stupid because it lost the channel that it was riding. And so it lost the guidance for what it needed to guide, and it went stupid. And so, and in fact, neither of Leo's Sparrows guided. And you saw that Munster on the wing got a lock, Steve Collins in his backseat, got a lock, Fox 1, bula bula, right? Good kill. So I don't know if that's a good answer to the question, but that's as much detail as I can provide. So John Nolan says, hey, Mooch, thanks for your content. I'm really enjoying your stories. Thank you, John, for being here. That's your guys' support has been everything. So we've been on the channel here for a long time. I want to sort of start to, end this particular live stream. So let me do one more question here. Please, can you compare the F-18C to the F-14 in a dogfight and BVR? Thanks. Okay, let's put a pin in that idea for a future episode. And all I'll say about that is the F-18 has a killer air-to-air radar, especially when you're doing stuff like diving into the beam, what we call the notch, and then coming out of it. Plus, AMRAAM is a very lethal weapon. It's better than Sparrow. So I learned to respect the Legacy Hornet, and I don't know a whole lot about the Super Hornet, but they were developing it when I was working at V-22 there at Patuxent River. I have had a chance to sit in the simulator of the back seat, and it's a killer airplane, right? MFDs and everything's digital and glass, and as a Tomcat guy, that's just like, wow, amazing stuff. Lee says, keep on rocking. Roger that. Can't help but keep on rocking. So we'll do it that way. Yeah, dang, you're late, Christoph. Apologize. Sheffield, England, 32 Bravo. Thank you. Again, your guys' support is overwhelming, and that's what keeps me going. That's you guys make me want to do better. And somebody said that each episode that we've been able to post is better than the last, and that's all I need to hear. So I'm going to take a strain. I'm not going to just throw up junk. I'm going to take a strain on each and every episode. Trying to do 2 a week, which can be ambitious, but we're gonna keep at bats and trying to hit triples and home runs. And your support, your sharing on social, your word of mouth among your posse is everything. I thank my patrons. They are my SEAL Team 6, my dev crew. And if you want to join those ranks, as I say at the end of every episode, just go to patreon.com/Ward Carroll. Any amount is appreciated, and the benefits include invites to our happy hours every Friday afternoon, 5 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time, and we hang for an hour and a half or so. That's a lot of fun, and I emerge from those just super motivated. You get the Mooch Report newsletter, where I will sign things, including books and whatnots, and set up a PO box that patrons get stuff signed. So last thing I'll say before we got to sign off here is we're in negotiations with a major publisher, one I'm familiar with, one that has published Punk's War before, to redo Punk's Wing and Punk's Fight. The other thing that's very exciting is you sort of start to think about, what am I going to give my A-list for the holiday season coming up this year? How about a box set of the Punk trilogy? So they are going to publish, it's looking very like it's going to happen, Punk's War, Punk's Wing, and Punk's Fight as a box set. Further, if you're a patron, I will sign that for you. So you talk about what I think would be a cool gift for the fighter aviation aficionado on your list, or the veteran on your list. I'm thinking that's right, top shelf. So also you're going to be able to buy them individually. So I know a lot of folks are like, where is Punk's Wing and Punk's Fight? So, those books have been out of print for some time now. They had a good run back in the mid-aughts. And what you're seeing now is the aftermarket people who bought up mass quantities when it was, in print, are now selling it for upwards. In fact, my man Doug Sherman said he saw it on where was that, Doug? On Amazon for like $800. That's, don't pay $800. You're going to be able to get it for $19.95 in a few weeks or a few months, right? So please hold out, and I'll keep you guys posted on what's available. I appreciate your support. I'm excited that Punk's Wing and Punk's Fight are going to get their due, because those are, I will say, of course, I'm the author, but those are books. If you enjoyed Punk's War, you're going to love the other two. And a lot happens in both of those. In Punk's Wing, we deal with female integration. Muddy is the pilot. Muddy Greenwood is the female pilot. And I think she's presented in a way that is both balanced and accurate. So I'm excited to have folks who are just now learning about me and Punk and that series, read those books for the first time. They will be available Audible and Kindle as well. So we're energizing the grid. Again, DCS, folks, I am going to get my rig squared away, and so it's just a matter of bandwidth, but I'm going to not just hang out with squadrons, the VV squadrons that I've been exposed to. And again, thank you for welcoming me to the DCS community. There's some talk that I might be designing my own scenario, with Baltic Dragon. So excited about potentially doing that. But stay tuned for just like Mover did DCS, I'm going to do DCS as well. I love what I'm seeing there. The bio scenario. And as I've said, I've known Bio since summer of '85 when he was a Top Gun instructor. I'm a huge Bio fan. He's a buddy of mine. Yes, I will be doing DCS episodes going forward. So please stay tuned. I don't know how soon that'll happen, because this, as you guys who do DCS know, if you're going to have a cool rig, especially with VR, which I want to have, it's an investment and takes some time. So right now, my near term, what I got to do is keep putting up killer episodes that you guys love. And so that's what I'm going to be doing in the days and weeks to come. Right. Okay. One more teaser. So this Sunday, it's actually a dubious situation. One of our old Rios passed away, an Academy classmate that we went through the RAG with. A guy named Bruce Bouchong passed away. So we're all gathering for his memorial service at the Naval Academy Chapel on Monday. But on Sunday, I'm going to do a special episode of Tomcat pilots and Rios gathered together at the Fleet Reserve Club here in Annapolis to talk about the airplane. This is going to be a fantastic episode. I'm very excited to do this. So look forward to that coming up. So again, thank you for Yeah, Sunday's D-Day. Good point, Deathwing. Roger that. So, obviously we'll be mentioning that on Twitter and other places. Again, thank you guys for your support. Thank you for being here. 274 strong right now. We've been going for an hour and 8 minutes. Appreciate it. I'll post this for the folks who didn't catch it in real time. And you guys are great. This community is awesome, as I say at the end of every episode. Your comments are fantastic. You guys are smarter than I am. You guys keep me honest, whether it's Penny Benjamin and not Peggy Benjamin or some of the other faux pas I've made. It's not Tactical Evaluation Squadron. It's Test and Evaluation Squadron for the 4477th. Thank you. I love it. Keep me honest, right? I'm just one man trying to do a semi-decent job here for YouTube. And again, this has been very cool. Thank you, Andrew. I'm very happy to have started this channel. You guys make me want to do better. And so thank you for your support. Please keep coming back. Please keep going with the word of mouth to your posse and other folks that you think might enjoy what we're doing here. And, I'll look forward to doing one of these again before long. I don't want to do too many of these because generally they don't perform as well as an episode, and that kind of can drag down my average, which hurts the algorithm, but I love seeing the comments threads here, and thank you guys for showing up for this one. All right. So for now, this is Mooch signing off, and I look forward, as I always say, I look forward to talking to you guys again soon. All right. Thanks.